Good evening, this is Diane, and tonight we will be discussing, or I am going to rather be sharing with you, the 7 signals that my body sends me when I am in a fat adaptive state. So I have kind of discussed what fat adaptive is in previous videos, but I'll go over it just a little bit here in the beginning so you kind of know what we are starting from and what we're trying to get to when we are talking about fat adaptation. And it is primarily happening when we're intermittent fasting and when we are on a lower carb, higher fat type of diet. So my name is Diane, and I have been helping women find nutritional plans and fitness programs to help them look and feel their best and live their most authentic life for about 25 years now. And a big change I have recently made to my own life is by incorporating intermittent fasting. And I started intermittent fasting, I started researching it a couple years ago and really started implementing it into my own lifestyle. When I was diagnosed as a pre-diabetic, I had become insulin resistant, and I was kind of struggling with a lot of hormonal changes that my body was going through. And with all those changes, all the things that I had been doing in my past were no longer working for me, such as dieting. So I decided to ditch the diets and start intermittent fasting, and I am proud to say that all those issues that I was having with being a pre-diabetic and insulin resistant and even some thyroid issues that I had have all been self-corrected, and I am a very happy and healthy 50-year-old woman now. So I'd like to share some of the things that I'm doing to see if possibly you might be a candidate for intermittent fasting, and if it might be that thing that can help you ditch the diet and live your most authentic life. So fat adaptation is basically when your body has learned to trust you, and it is burning fat for energy instead of relying on glucose to be available as an energy source. And so that's really the state that we are achieving, or we're wanting to be in, when we're intermittent fasting. And we go those long periods of fasting without making that glycogen readily available as an energy source. And so when our body really adapts to intermittent fasting in those long periods of fasting, and what makes fasting even better is when we can lower our carb intake and increase our healthy fat intake, is we really do start to burn that fat more efficiently. And there will be a point in your intermittent fasting experience where you will become fat adaptive. And that's truly the goal that we're aiming for with intermittent fasting and that lower carb, high fat diet, is to really become fat adaptive and have our body trust that we're going to do the right things for it. And so I'm going to show you, or share with you, the 7 signs that I notice within my own body to know that I am in a fat adaptive sort of state, and that my body is doing exactly what I'm priming it to do with intermittent fasting, and being very aware of my carb intake and very deliberate about my fat intake. And the first one is when I no longer feel those kind of hangry or hunger pains when I am initiating a fast or when I'm in a long fasted state. And that really happens because our hunger hormones, the 3 big ones, which are ghrelin, leptin, and those neuropeptides, which are sending off all these signals to our body to let us know that we need food or that we are satisfied or aren't satisfied, they really start to subside, and they kind of start to learn how to mind their own business and kind of trust that our body's going to do what we need to do, and they quiet down. And when that happens, that's when you know that you're in that fat adaptive state, because your body is no longer going to feel like it's in that crisis mode and need to send you signals to do something to fix whatever your body is feeling or your system is feeling like it's a problem. So the number one signal that I get from my body when I am in a fat adaptive state is the hunger pains, and those hunger hormones are really set in check, and they start subsiding, and they're not constantly in that active mode sending signals off to me. And the number 2 signal that my body sends to me is that starvation feeling is really subsided within my system. And so I noticed that this morning very specifically. I woke up and I felt very satisfied, even though I had entered my fast at a pretty early time last night, and I only had a piece of barbecue chicken and a salad with no dressing, no carbs or anything on it. So it's just a protein and some greens. And I woke up this morning and I felt great. I didn't feel hungry. I wasn't thinking about the fact that I wanted food, and I was able to extend my fast out till 2 o'clock this afternoon. And that's because I am in that fat adaptive state. So my body didn't feel like it had to send off these starvation signals to me, kind of signaling me that I needed to eat. So the number 2 step or signal that your body's going to send to you when you are fat adaptive is that the starvation feeling will be subsided. The number 3 signal that my body sends to me is that I am no longer fantasizing or constantly thinking about carbohydrates. And so if you are the kind of person that is, regularly consuming carbohydrates, or you feel like you might be a little carb addictive, then once your body gets into that fat adaptive state, you will no longer really feel like you need to have carbs or crave carbohydrates, or feel like you are being deprived of carbs in that low carb, high fat state. And that's a really awesome feeling to have. I know for me, I don't even look for carbs anymore. I'm pretty satisfied on a very natural food, high fat diet with some lean protein and lots of fruits and veggies. And that really does subside my cravings for food and really does make me feel satisfied without having to reach for a bunch of carbohydrates to kind of satisfy my body's needs. So that was number 3, and that is your craving or your dependency on carbohydrates will subside. And then my 4th signal that is sent to me, and now how I know I'm really in that fat adaptive state, is that my energy is kind of through the roof. And it's a very natural energy. So you'll wake up ready to start your day. You'll feel energized throughout your day. You won't have those highs and lows of energy, highs and dips throughout your day. It'll be very even keel. And you won't feel like you need some sort of stimulant to get you through the day. So you do, when you're intermittent fasting, it's very common to use black coffee or tea as sort of that thing to kind of get you through that period of time when you're trying to get your body into that fat adaptive state and your hormones are out of control and you're feeling that starvation feeling and you're kind of preoccupied about what you're not eating and what you are eating. And then when you get through all that, you really don't even need to depend on coffee as much or caffeine to either give you that energy boost that you need or subside those hunger pangs or cravings that you have. And so that has really kicked in for me this week, and it's been a really nice signal to receive because I feel like I can kind of go through my day completely energized. Don't take those energy dips like mid-afternoon, which are pretty typical, and I didn't feel the need to actually reach for something to kind of keep me energized throughout my day. So that was a really nice signal I noticed today. And then the 5th signal that I really notice about being in that fat adaptive state is I sleep much better. I'm ready to go to bed when it's bedtime. I sleep soundly through the night. No insomnia, no disturbances through the night whatsoever. I go to sleep and the next thing you know, it's time to wake up in the morning. And then I wake up feeling rested and start my day. And I think, again, that has to just go with all those hormones are balanced out. I know for me as a 50-year-old woman, it's nice to know that my hormones are in check and I'm not having any crazy insomnia nights or night sweats or leg cramps like I was having a couple years ago. And everything is very even keel and balanced out. And so the number 5 signal is that your sleep will improve once you're in that fat adaptive state. And then number 6 is brain function. And so when you're energized and you're not loading your body down with all those carbs and you are naturally kind of going off your own body's energy burn and you start really using ketones as your source of energy as opposed to the sugar and the glucose, you will notice that you will be much more alert. Your brain will feel like it's very sharp and that you are kind of just ready mentally and emotionally to face your day. Again, I think that has something to do with just the hormone balance that we get as women as well when we're intermittent fasting and then ultimately in that fat adaptive state is we hormonally balance ourselves out. And I know I'm enjoying it. I'm sure the people around me are enjoying it. And so that's that signal too. If you are intermittent fasting and you are kind of noticing that you're very even keel emotionally and you're feeling very optimistic and your brain and head seem like everything's kind of clear and that you're having, good productive days in your workplace or maybe even around the house, then that's a very good signal that you are also fat adaptive because you're using your ketones and your fat to sort of fuel your brain and you're not filling it full of all that sugar and glucose energy. And then number 7 is that when you're exercising and you're fat adaptive, you can go back to those longer duration or those aerobic type exercises and really feel the energy, and that you can keep up with the energy throughout your exercise session without necessarily needing any sort of stimulant or pre-workout formula to get you through. And I know in the group that I'm working with now, with the women, they are kind of saying that they don't feel like they need to have any sort of pre-workout or anything to get through their workout anymore, that they're kind of just good with their having their coffee or whatever, and not really feeling as sluggish as they were in the beginning. And we are kind of rounding out our 4th week together. So it took about 4 weeks for them. Now, it's not really set in stone when you become fat adaptive or when you will start feeling these signals, because everybody is different and everybody's coming in with a different starting point, a different level of where their hormones are at, or maybe where their hormones are not at. And chemically, we're all made up differently. So if you have been intermittent fasting and you're not feeling any of these signals, please know that this is not an all-inclusive list. These are just kind of the signals that I receive from my body, where I know that I'm in that kind of fat adaptive state and that I am doing everything right. And that is also backed up by the physical changes that I see, and that I have a very slender body. I'm noticing a lot of body fat disappearing. And so don't get frustrated if you are intermittent fasting and you are kind of being very cautious of what kind of carbs you're eating and you're very aware of how much fat you're eating. I say just stick it out, stick with the plan. It will click in for you when your body is ready to just trust that this process is exactly what it needs for you and to get through your day. So I'm going to go over the 7 signals really quick, and then I'll go ahead and answer some questions. So the first signal that I receive when I am fat adaptive from my body is that I'm no longer hangry, and I no longer feel those hunger pains that can kind of be a little bit uncomfortable when you are just starting out with intermittent fasting or changing up your carb and fat intake. The number 2 signal that my body sends me is that my starvation levels subside. So I don't feel that like panicky, hungry, shaky, kind of fatigued feeling, and that I just sort of run off my own energy source, and that I no longer feel like I am in like a desperate need for a meal. So that's number 2. Number 3 is my carb addiction or fascination has subsided. So I no longer feel like I need to reach for a carb as an energy source, that I can trust that I can go through the day with little to no carbohydrates other than fruits and vegetables, and I can have enough energy and enough stamina to get through my day. So my carb addiction or need for carbs definitely dies down. Number 4 is my energy is turned on and it feels like it's out of control, and that's a natural thing. So nothing needs to be added as a stimulant in order for me to receive that energy level. It's just my own body's energy burning off the fat that it is now adapted to, and it's being able to tap into for an energy source. Number 5 is my sleep improves. So when it's time to go to bed, I'm ready. I don't lay in bed awake, with insomnia. I sleep throughout the night peacefully, and then I wake up well rested in the morning. Number 6 was my brain function seems to be a lot clearer. I can get through the day, complete tasks. Emotionally and mentally, I just feel more positive and optimistic. And that's just because my brain is being fueled by ketones and fat and not necessarily sugar or glucose. And then number 7 is that I feel like I can get through the day with more energy. Exercise becomes more effortless with just the ability that my body has to tap into the fat for resources when my glycogen stores are all used up. So those are my 7 signals. Again, if you are intermittent fasting and you are doing a lower carb, higher fat sort of nutrition plan, and you aren't feeling any of these things kick in yet, don't throw in the towel. Trust me, it is totally worth it to ride it out. All of our bodies are completely different, and it will click in for you, and they may come one at a time. Be very aware of your body, be very aware of how you're feeling, and make sure that you're not discounting something that might be happening to you as not being part of a benefit of intermittent fasting or fat adaptation, and don't write it off as something else. So let me see, I got a question or something here. Let me see if I can see what it says. Girl, you look good. Show us your guns. Oh, I have a long sleeve shirt on, so I can't show my guns, but thank you so much. Anything else? Let me see if I have anything else on my notes that I wanted to talk about that I didn't. I think that was pretty much it I had for my notes. A couple questions that have come up in my intermittent fasting group for women was a couple of women were noticing that they were feeling colder than usual. This is very common when you're fasting. There's no like definitive reason for why people get cold when they're fasting. So I kind of did a little bit of research. So I'm going to share with you some of the things that I found and some of the comments people were making who are, you know, sort of veteran or long-term fasting participants. A lot of conversation was centered around the fact that our blood circulation is centered around our abdomen, which is part of that fat adaptation, and the fact that we're kind of burning fat as fuel. And so that could be a reason why we get sort of a little bit of a colder feeling when we are fasting. Another big conversation that was going around was we have a lower metabolic rate, and so that could also be why you're colder when you're fasting. And then our bodies are also very smart, and so when we're fasting and our caloric intake is lower during that fasting period, our bodies go into that energy reserve mode, and they start to reserve energy until, you know, we get a next meal. So that is another reason why we could be cold when we're fasting. So just be aware of it. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just our body's way of, you know, dealing with being in a state where we're depleted of glycogen, and it's working hard to tap into those fat stores. And I always say those things are really good signals. If you're cold and you're fasting, that means you're doing things right. Just put on a sweater or a long sleeve shirt or whatever, and just kind of enjoy it and know that you're doing something good for yourself because everything you're doing is working. And then another comment that was coming up in our group was the feeling of having bad breath or a different taste in your mouth when you're fasting. And that, again, is another very true thing that happens. That does happen when we are in ketosis. And ketosis is that low carb, high fat, fat burning state that our body is in when we intermittent fast, and we are kind of in that depleted glycogen store, and we're burning fat, and we're in a, you're following sort of a kinetic type of diet plan. And again, that's just one of those things that just happens. It's our body's chemistry. It happens when we're burning those ketones. It's nothing to be alarmed about. You know, carry around some mints or some gum or brush your teeth or, you know, whatever you've got to do. But it's, again, one of just those things that's just our body's process of dealing with being in a fat adaptive state and just burning those ketones for energy. I say if you're feeling those things, then it's a good thing that you're doing everything you're supposed to be doing. Again, I am going to be launching my intermittent fasting for today's aging woman, is what we're going to be calling it. And we are going to be focusing on intermittent fasting for women in that age range between 40 and 60 who are noticing that things in their bodies are changing and that the typical everyday old school diet regimens are no longer working for them, that eating every 2 hours, 6 small meals a day is just not cutting it. You may feel like you might be a little bit insulin resistant, or you might be having some thyroid issues, or hormonally you just feel like you're out of balance. This will be the group for you. If you are interested in joining us, it will be a 30-day program where I will teach you how to incorporate intermittent fasting for you and your lifestyle as an aging woman in today's world, and how you can figure out a way to live that lifestyle and still live within the means of your life so that you feel like you are living authentically for everything that you want to have with you and your family. I will post a link below. You can go ahead and get your name and email address on my list so that when I launch my program here in the next week, you'll be notified, and then you can get yourself signed up and you can join us for the month of August. Like I said, the month of March, my group is going great. Everyone is feeling like intermittent fasting is working for them, and they are feeling some of these fat adaptive signals that I just shared with you. So everything is working as planned. If you have any questions and you're catching this in a recorded version, definitely feel free to leave me a comment below, and I will circle back around and get your question answered for you. As always, I appreciate your comments and your positive feedback for these videos. If it is stuff that is working for you, please definitely let me know by leaving me a message, and then I know that I can kind of keep up with this format and keep you guys motivated to do some things to help improve your health and well-being. I appreciate your time, and I always appreciate you checking in with me, so thank you so much for that. Have a good night, you guys.